Excellencies, distinguished representatives, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to welcome you all to the Counter-Terrorism Committee's open meeting on countering terrorist narratives and preventing the use of the Internet for terrorist purposes. I would like to extend a special welcome to the participating representatives of member states, international and regional organizations, civil society organizations, private companies, and academia. For those of you active on social media, I would like to encourage you to use the hashtag #CTNarratives in your posts about today's meeting. This hashtag is also visible on the electronic signs at your seats. Please note that this meeting is being webcast live and that the recordings will be made available on the committee's website. Excellencies, distinguished representatives, this is the first open meeting of the Counter-Terrorism Committee on countering terrorist narratives and preventing the use of Internet for terrorist purposes since the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic. By now, we have all learned to adapt to and even live with this pandemic, but so have the terrorists. In fact, the terrorists have yet again demonstrated how opportunistic, flexible, and adaptive they are to new circumstances, taking advantage of changing realities online and on the ground. Overall, the pandemic has reinforced and accelerated existing trends. This is true also for terrorist narratives, propaganda, and recruitment efforts. Terrorists keep exploiting heightened vulnerabilities, loneliness, and extreme frustration of people all over the world, including children and youth, who spend more time online even after the lifting of the pandemic-related restrictions. Over the past 2 years, terrorists have exploited pandemic and related grievances through conspiracy theories, the spread of misinformation and disinformation campaigns, thereby continuing to fuel societal divisions, a rise in sectarian hatred, and anti-democratic movements and distrust in governments and state institutions. In this changing landscape, understanding the links between online narratives and offline effects remain a priority because only with strong evidence-based findings that inform interventions can we effectively counter the narratives of these terrorist groups. I also emphasize that terrorists need not be directly or physically involved in the attacks, as they can incite terrorism by creating and sharing hateful and violent content online around the globe. However, terrorists who incite violence also play a role in these attacks and should be held accountable. Security Council Resolution 2354 of 2017 welcomed the comprehensive international framework to counter terrorist narratives that made clear that states and others must enter fully into the marketplace of ideas to emphasize terrorists' inhumanity, expose the flaws in their argument, and offer alternative points of view. Terrorist distorted narratives are utilized to recruit supporters and new terrorists, mobilize resources, and win support from sympathizers, in particular by exploiting information and communication technologies, including through the Internet and social media. Acting in accordance with a number of Council resolutions, including Resolution 2354, the Comprehensive International Framework, and the Addendum to the Madrid Guiding Principles on Foreign Terrorist Fighters, the Committee and seated continue to promote a comprehensive multi-stakeholder approach to counter-terrorism and terrorist narratives. We encourage a whole of the government and whole of society approach best embodied by joint efforts by governments, international and regional organizations, the ICT industry, academia, and a range of other actors, including youth, families, women, victims of terrorism, religious, cultural, and education leaders, and other concerned groups of civil society. Governments should work to counter efforts by terrorists under the false cover of welfare or relief organizations to spread terrorist narratives through online and offline means. The presence here today of participants from all parts of society offers further testimony to how seriously we take the whole of society approach to countering terrorism. Additionally, Security Council Resolution 2617 from December 2021 stresses the need to counter the use of the internet for terrorist purposes, including by counter-terrorist narratives and technological solutions, and explicitly references the Global Internet Forum to Counter-Terrorism and the CTED-affiliated Public-Private Partnership Tech Against Terrorism. And I'm pleased to see representatives of both organizations with us here today. According to Security Council Resolution 2354 of 2017, counter-narratives should aim not only to rebut terrorist messages, but also to amplify positive narratives, to provide credible alternatives and address issues of concern or grievances to vulnerable audiences. We also need to strengthen de-radicalization strategies and efforts. This resolution further stresses that to be more effective, initiatives and programs in this area should be tailored to the specific circumstances of different contexts at all levels and take the gender dimension into account. And of course, as in all we do, the committee consistently insists upon the need to comply with relevant international human rights obligations. This year marks the 5th anniversary since the adoption by the Security Council of Resolution 2354 of 2017. Much has happened since. The United Nations Security Council and its Counter-Terrorism Committee continually strive to adapt and evolve in order to address changing circumstances. To be successful, however, we need everybody's active involvement and continuous engagement, and this is why that I'm very grateful to all of you for being here today. Excellencies, distinguished representatives, the threat of terrorism is grave and universal and continues to grow in several parts of the world, particularly in South Asia and several parts of Africa. Terrorism, any part of the world, can directly impact peace and security in other parts of the world. Therefore, it is imperative for us to reaffirm our commitment to a zero-tolerance approach to terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. There cannot be any exception or justification for any act of terrorism, regardless of motivation, and wherever, whenever, and by whomsoever it is committed. As has been rightly mentioned under the paragraph 3 of the UN Security Council Resolution 1566 of 2004, that terrorism is under no circumstances justifiable by consideration of a political, philosophical, ideological, racial, ethnical, religious, or other similar nature. I would like to thank you for your continued engagement on this issue, and I certainly look forward to our discussions. I thank you.